Chapter 1, Lesson 2 of Precalculus, looking at the characteristics of a function when analyzing, and in this video we want to look at symmetry. Symmetry, as you would expect, carries the same meaning as you would in art, that it looks the same when viewed from a different perspective or in more than one way. And in math, symmetry we can see in all three models that we're looking at, graphically, numerically, and algebraically. Now we will concentrate on the algebraic part of it as we go through and the graphical part of it, but we can look at a table and see some symmetry as well. If we take a look at this parabola, for instance, we'll notice that the right side of the graph looks exactly the same as the left side. In other words, what's on the right side of the y-axis is exactly the same or a mirror image of what's on the left side of the y-axis. Now I want you to notice the ordered pair. When you put in this particular x value, you get this y value. When you put in the opposite of that x value, you produce the same y value. So if you have a situation where you put in x and you put in negative x, you put in a number and you put in its opposite number, and both times that gives you the exact same y value, that function is considered to be an even function and is symmetrical over the y-axis. Okay, so it's very important to understand that. When you put in x and negative x and you get the exact same y value, that is considered, number one, to be an even function, and number two, it's said to be symmetrical over the y-axis. Okay, so that would be that type of symmetry. You can also see the symmetry in the table. We won't do a lot with table, but just for a quick reference, you'll notice I have -3, 2, -2, and -1 all producing these y values. Notice that when I put in the opposite value of 1, I get the same y value. When I put in the opposite value of -2, I get the same y value. I put in the opposite value of -3 and I get the same y value. So you can see even in the table that it has symmetry, that as you put in x and its opposite x and you produce the same y values, there is symmetry there. Now again, algebraically is what we're going to concentrate on, so this will be the types of problems that I'll give you in class, or the types of problems I'll give you on a quiz. Now I'll talk about these and then I'll do a few examples in another video. Check those out because it is the focus of the lesson. An even function that we talked about before is symmetrical over the y-axis, and what happens is when I put in negative x, I get the exact same thing as I would if I put in positive x. So here's an example of what you would have to be doing in an example or a quiz test problem. Here's the function x squared. If I put in negative x for this x, so I put in f of negative x, and remember f of negative x means simply substitute this into the expression. If I put in negative x and then simplify it, negative x squared ends up being x squared. So you'll notice I end up with the exact same function, x squared, that I had when I began, x squared. So it doesn't matter whether I put in x or whether I put in negative x, I still get the same y value, therefore the function is even. For an odd function, when I put in a negative x value, I don't get the same y value, but I get the opposite y value, meaning the entire function is the opposite of what it is when I put in positive x. So again, algebraically, for an example, here's x cubed. If I put in negative x for x and I simplify it, I get negative x cubed. Notice this is the opposite of x cubed and this is x cubed. So when I get the opposite of what I began with, then the function is considered to be odd, and that graphically is a reflection around the origin, meaning if you take the graph and you spin it 180 degrees around the origin, that you'll have the exact same graph that you started with. That would be considered to be an odd function. So wrapping it up very quickly, an even function means when you put in negative x, you get the exact same function that you began with, and an even function is symmetrical over the y-axis. An odd function is when you put in negative x, you get the opposite function. That's considered to be odd, and that is a reflection around the origin. So again, check out the next video. You want to practice these algebraic ways of figuring out if they're even or odd, because once again, that is the focus of the lesson.